What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. UFC 261 full card predictions, breakdown, analysis, and yeah, we got Uriah and Carnelossi taking on Na Liang for our first fight. Uriah and Carnelossi 12-2 with 8 TKOs. She's pretty short, 5'2" with a 61.5-inch reach, but she's jacked. Coming off of a doctor's stoppage, lost Angela Hill. That's gonna happen, to be honest. She didn't look too bad in this fight, actually, and would have lost the decision anyway, but the third round was looking pretty good for her until she got elbowed right on the forehead, opened up a cut. Doctor came in, waved it off. Not the most technical striker, but does have big power. Pretty wild combinations, not really starting with jabs too much, really starting with hooks, which is kind of what she has to do as a really short fighter. She's got to find her way inside, and likes to throw like a 4-punch combo with a leg kick at the end of it. Just very, very high output from her. Not really working the body a whole lot, though. Great cardio. In that Angela Hill fight, she actually sped up towards the end of the fight. She can wrestle. She does have some pretty decent jiu-jitsu, but it's not really the main part of her game. She had Gloria DePaula mounted, like we saw. And Gloria DePaula is a girl we're now seeing in the UFC, so she won that fight very soundly. And definitely lacks in the striking defense. It's a big hole in her game. Just really walks forward, taking shots like nothing, and no movement on the feet, really. Not really any head movement either. Has a TKO win over an 8-1 opponent. She does have a lot of power, some pretty decent body kicks when she does use them. She's taken on Na Liang, 13-4, 7 submissions, and she's really, really huge for the division, 5'9", with a 67.5-inch reach. 4 of her submissions are by armbar, 3 are by rear naked choke. Got a pretty dynamic jiu-jitsu game when the fight does get there. And in 3 of her fights, I watched 3 of her fights, all 3, she shoots for the double leg early on, right away, like within 5-10 seconds. And actually, as usually gets it, her wrestling's pretty good. Like I said, elite grappling, elite submissions, and that's her goal, is to get it there, find the sub. She doesn't really have like amazing top control, but it's there. It's enough for her to get into a good position for the sub. TKO lost to Maria Agapova, so she's seen UFC competition before. Outside of that, her wins aren't really against the highest level of competition. Like 3-1, 6-2, 2-2. Like, these aren't really high level opponents, but she is finishing most of them in the first round right away, basically. Carnelossi is gonna have the striking advantage for sure. She's definitely gonna be the stronger, more physical, strong woman in there. Clinch advantage, her clinch is okay. Looked decent against Angela, and definitely will have a cardio advantage. Been 3 rounds, way more. And Na's going to have pretty much every grappling advantage. They're going to be height and reach. In this fight, I just don't really see Na getting the takedowns. I think, Na's striking isn't the best either. I think she is going to struggle defensively on the feet against Ariane. Somebody who's just super aggressive, all action on the feet, coming forward with big hooks, big power. I don't think we see a TKO or a finish here in any way, but I am going to take Uriah Carnelossi by decision. Right now she is at, let's see, minus 185, minus 180. Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. Wouldn't really be all that surprised if she did struggle with the wrestling of Na, but probably not going to happen. Next fight, we got Jeff Molina taking on Qileng Aori. It's a pretty interesting fight. I really think this will be fight of the night, to be honest. Both these guys' striking styles. Jeff Molina, 8-2, 3 TKOs, 4 submissions. Coming off of that decision win over Jacob Silva on the Contender Series. He looked pretty good, but it was somewhat of a close fight, actually. He dropped Jacob a few times. Jacob was landing huge shots on him. Really calculated, calm striker. Picks his shots, only throws when he wants to. Doesn't really, put himself in danger a lot. Kicks to all areas of the body. His most dangerous weapon is his head kick. He throws it constantly. Very quick counter. Very quick counter fighter as well. When his opponents kind of overextend, throw maybe a 4-punch combo when they should be throwing a 2-punch combo, hang out in the pocket a bit too long, he really punishes them for that. And good hands. his main combo is 1-2 with the uppercut following it, and it's really really good. Lands a lot. He has okay takedowns. His wrestling really isn't the strong part of his game. It's really the jiu-jitsu is much better. Looks for submission on the ground rather than a lot of ground and pound, which is fine. Um, Definitely has a tendency to be controlled in the clinch and on the ground. He's not really the most physically strong guy. He's only 23. He'll develop his strength as he gets older, but he struggles against guys who are just super strong. Maybe they have a wrestling background. Example, Ken Porter did control him in the whole first round. Jeff Molina found a submission in the second, but Ken really had him in trouble in that first round. And Joey Estrada, a 3-7 fighter, took Jeff down, controlled him for about 2 minutes on the ground. So, Jeff is finishing both of these people, but he's struggling before. So, the whole point is his defensive wrestling is not great. Really good gas tank. Train out of Glory MMA, one of the better gyms out there. Obviously, with great training partners and coaches out there. His opponent, Qileng Aori, 18-6, 5 TKOs. Struggles a bit defensively on the ground in the submission. Been submitted 3 times, but that's going to happen. And it's not like it's against like top level guys. It's against like 5-3 opponents, 3-1. Um, he's more of a volume striker, high output guy. Not really gonna try to finish a ton of fights. Usually just trying to get to a decision. 11-3 on decisions, so he's got really good cardio, really durable, never been knocked out before. Good leg kick defense, really good at checking, moving right out of the range of the leg kicks. Powerful right hand. I do notice he has a tendency to leave himself open to being countered, which against a guy like Jeff Molina that might just kind of be his downfall in this fight. Who knows? Sometimes he gets a little too wild. Has a great chin. You watch him take the huge shots on the feet like it's nothing. I think Aori will have the advantage in the wrestling, the power, and the cardio, and definitely the output. I forgot to mention that. Jeff will have the striking technicality, the wider array of strikes on the feet. Like I said, the kicks are going to be there, and the jiu-jitsu off his back. Jeff has some really good submissions from his backs, good submission attempts, triangle chokes, things like that. And I just feel like Jeff isn't going to get the fight to the ground where he needs it. Not that he really needs it on the ground. I think Jeff could definitely win this on the feet, but I just see a little bit more upside to Qileng Aori here. A little bit higher output, better right hand, and he's been in there with more higher level opponents. We really don't know what Jeff is capable of. His record, the best fighter on his record is Jacob Silva, 6-2. Other than that, he's facing guys 0-1, 0-0, 2-1. I know that not everything is based on the level of competition you face, but it is a tell, and there's just too many question marks surrounding this fight for me to bet it. But I'm gonna have to go with Qileng Aori, I think by decision. This fight's very close. Yeah, -115, -105. So we're looking at a very, very slight favorite. I'm not going to bet it. I don't really see any upside to either guy on the betting. But Qileng Aori is my pick here. Moving on up, we got Zhu Rong taking on Rodrigo Vargas. And Zhu impresses me a lot. The guy's only 21, and he has a record of 16-3. Tapology actually says 17-3 right now. So yeah, he has 11 TKOs, 4 submissions, wins, and the guy's only 21, but he has wins over guys with 19-4, 17-5 records. Very rangy, dynamic striker. Gives you a lot of looks, but low output. He's often switching stances and doesn't really throw much from his southpaw position, but does like to switch. Swings a bit wild sometimes, makes up for it with his good cardio, good chin. Been in a couple 5-round fights during his career as well. Finished Marcio Andrade by 5th round rear naked choke. He's not really too much of a grappler, but if the fight gets there, he's got some good submission threat. Okay offensive wrestling. Definitely struggles defensively with the submissions. All 3 losses are by submission, and if you look at the opponents who submitted him, 13-10, 9-4, 1-1. Not really the guys who you would think would be submitting, this caliber of fighter. Pretty kick-heavy approach, spinning kicks, head kicks, things like that. Not too many body kicks or leg kicks. He will throw them, but it's more common you'll see him throw the head kick. Fast 1-2. That's his go-to. Powerful hands, but somewhat of a low output. Rodrigo Vargas, 11-4, 7 TKOs. Definitely a striker as well. 0-2 in the UFC, and the second fight was just kind of unfortunate for him because I do feel like he was winning that. He was outstriking Brock Weaver by double, and then landed the illegal knee. Couldn't continue, called the fight. So his first fight was against Alex De Silva, where he got just wrestled to a decision. It's going to happen against Alex De Silva. No shame in that at all. And that's not the only time we've seen him struggle against grapplers. He was taken down 3 times by Marco Elpidio. I don't really think he's going to have to worry about the takedown threat too much against Zhu Rong, to be honest. He has some pretty good takedowns himself. Not a lot of top pressure, not a lot of top control after. Doesn't really do a lot with the takedown. Just has the threat of the takedown mat return, basically. And mainly a striker's a southpaw. Good left hand, pretty powerful left hand. Good switch kick. I noticed he threw that a couple times. Throws it to the body, to the head. Accurate striking. Another low output guy. Both these guys are fairly low output. Don't be surprised if this one is boring, but I think it should be a fun fight. Zhu will be the longer guy. 1-inch reach advantage, but a 3-inch height advantage. And Rodrigo will have better movement, better footwork, and a better chance to evade the heavy strikes of Zhu. I feel like for Rodrigo to win this, he's going to have to work his way into the clinch, use a bit of wrestling, get the fight there, and maybe throw up a submission if he can, because we've seen Zhu struggle so much there, but I feel like there's just more upside to Zhu Rong here. The odds definitely show that. Minus 250 right now. So, possible parlay piece. I'm pretty confident that Zhu gets it done, but again, it's not like my confidence in Johnny Munoz that I had. Sadly, that fight's off. That was my first leg of my parlay, and now that fight's canceled. So maybe I have to switch it now to Zhu Rong. So I'm picking Zhu Rong. I think we'll go by decision. Wouldn't really be surprised if he gets a finish, but Rodrigo's a tough dude. Should be a fun fight. Moving on to the card, Danaa Batgerel taking on Kevin Natividad. And Batgerel's 8-2, 4 TKOs, 1-1 in the UFC, coming off of that KO win, like knocked out cold against Guido Canetti. If you look at Guido Canetti, he was 8-5 at the time of the fight. Not really a incredible win there, but it is somewhat impressive that he just put him out like that. He did lose a decision to Weili Zhang. Weili Zhang, pretty strong wrestler. He's basically a wrestler with a really strong right hand, and Danaa won the first 2 rounds, or won the first round, maybe edged the second round, but the third round was a 10-8 for sure. He was just getting controlled against the cage, getting hit up with the right hand, and during the first 2 rounds, he looked pretty good. Definitely outstruck Alatang in this fight. Definitely won the battle on the feet, but the grappling did it for Alatang, and we didn't really see a whole lot there. I mean, just because you get controlled by Weili Zhang doesn't mean your grappling's necessarily bad, but it is something to consider. He has really good footwork, moving in and out on angles to avoid the strikes. Constantly circling away from his opponent's power hand, which is amazing. And great boxing combos. Not really a high kicker, but will use some kicks. Top tier cardio. He actually sped up against Alatang in the third, which is impressive, especially with such a fast-paced fight that was. His go-to combo on the feet's a jab to overhand right, or a right hook at the end. Pretty good knees in the clinch. Not really known as a grappler or a clinch. Doesn't really do much work in the clinch. Just prefers to strike from distance. Great pressure as well. Kevin Natividad, 9-2, 5 TKOs. Been TKO'd twice now, so taking a bit of damage. Coming off of that brutal TKO or KO to Miles Johns, it was just brutal. And the story of that fight was Miles Johns was picking him apart with his jab. Didn't really have the greatest striking defense. Couldn't really do anything about the jab that Miles Johns was throwing at him. He has good pressure. Pressures his opponent back to the cage. He's more of a jiu-jitsu fighter as well. He's a black belt. And most of his amateur wins, actually almost all of them, are by submission. So that's his foundation for sure. Um, pretty quick strikes, not really the most accurate strikes. He kind of does that thing that Macy Barber does, where he's kind of just like shadow boxing sometimes. Not really a lot of kicks either. He has really good takedown defense. Johns, who is pretty elite in the wrestling, went 0 for 7 on takedowns against him. So Batgerel is definitely gonna have to keep this fight standing, and his path to victory is gonna be to pressure him, keep poking him with the jab, like he should be able to, and just like Miles Johns did. Batgerel's a little bit longer than Miles Johns. I feel like he's gonna have an easier time doing that, and I feel like he's faster. So I feel like that's gonna be how this fight goes. I think we're just gonna see Batgerel pick him apart with the jab. I don't think we're gonna see a finish. The Natividad is going to need a takedown probably, or figure out something in the striking. If he goes out there and strikes like he did against Miles Johns, it's going to be a long night. Natividad has a hard time against guys who move well because of his low accuracy rate, and Batgerel definitely has good footwork. So I'm going Batgerel by decision. We look at the odds here. I think this is a pretty good spot. Straight bet on Batgerel doesn't look too bad. Minus 165, it's pretty good. Moving on with the card, Tristan Connolly taking on Patsabatini. This is one of the fights I'm a little bit more excited for. Grappler fight, both sides. Tristan's 14-6, 9 submissions, 4 TKOs. Coming down from welterweight to featherweight, so he's losing 25 pounds off his most recent weigh-in, which is, I don't know really how it's going to be. It might be okay. He did look a little bit higher body fat in his fight against Michel Pereira, which was at welterweight. But we'll see. He's normally used to competing at lightweight, so he's coming all the way down. So that's definitely going to play a role here. Primary jiu-jitsu grappler, like I said, BJJ black belt. 7 of his 9 submissions are rear naked chokes, which shows that he thrives when he's in top position with his opponent's back to him. 1-0 UFC record, like we said. Upset Michel Pereira as a plus 400 underdog. And I mean, not really sure we can learn a whole lot from this fight. Because Michel gassed himself out doing gymnastics, doing like gainers all over the place, breakdancing. You know how he does that sometimes. And he just looked gassed by the end of the first. He couldn't really deal with Tristan's top pressure as his fight went on, constant submission attempts as well. His wrestling isn't that strong, though. He's not really good in takedowns. Makes it work against lower-level opponents, but he couldn't land any against Michel Pereira, even when he was gassed. And the top control that Tristan had was because Michel was either pulling guard or he reversed position on Michel. But he is good when the fight gets to the ground. Throwing up submission attempts from the bottom. Not a lot, not really strong submission game from the bottom for the most part. But he is throwing. The threat is always there for these submissions. Not really the best striking in the world, mostly used for takedowns, obviously, and not super athletic, not super agile, doesn't move too well. Decent cardio on him. He hung in there with Michel, but not the best cardio, probably average. Biggest part of his striking is his kicks, and he's one of these grapplers who's not afraid to have a kick-heavy approach because he doesn't care about getting taken down. He'll just reverse position, submit you. So he's one of those guys. Patsabatini is a guy who I've been, looking forward to here in the UFC. Had that fight scheduled against Rafael Alves earlier. We know what happened there. He has 9 submissions on his record. And, he has a rear naked choke win over Tony Gravely, who we just saw this weekend go out there and dominate. Tony Gravely's a very strong wrestler. Patsabatini was able to get on top of him and take him out with a choke. So that's pretty impressive. His submissions are by rear naked, arm bars, heel hooks, very diverse BJJ game. Not the highest level of competition throughout his career, but he is finishing them, so that's at least something, Former CFFC featherweight champ, BJJ black belt, Pan American champ. So obviously he's definitely a primary grappler, but stylistically pretty similar to Tristan Connolly. Doesn't really have that great of striking. He's aggressive with the takedowns. He has. I will give him the speed advantage on the feet and the hands. he might do some work there in this fight, but I think this fight takes place mostly on the ground, and I'm going to have to go with the wrestler and Patsabatini here, just getting the takedown repeatedly. We saw Michel Pereira was able to take Tristan down 3 times in their fight and get and knock some top control there. So um, I think Pat's going to do the same thing. Wouldn't really be surprised if we saw a finish in this fight, but I'm going to go Pat Sabatini by decision. Maybe a parlay piece there. Maybe you like Tristan with a pretty good underdog value, but personally for me, it's Pat Sabatini here. Next fight, Brendan Allen versus Karl Roberson. Brendan Allen has kind of a cult fan base, so I'm sorry for what I'm about to say. He has a record of 15-4 with 5 TKOs, 8 subs. Guy's a finisher, guy's a beast. Not going to take anything away from him, but he's coming off that brutal TKO loss to Sean Strickland. He had a pretty high output in this fight. Decent 1-2, good body head combos, heavy leg kicks from himself. And he showed pretty high fight IQ. He recognized that Sean has one of the more unique stances in the game. He stands straight up, a lot of weight on his front foot. If you're putting a lot of weight on your front foot, the leg kicks are going to have even a bigger effect. So he recognized that and kept, targeting that leg. And when he saw Sean was struggling, he kept him up. I think if this fight went on, I think if he had a bit better striking defense, it could have been a different story. But he doesn't have good striking defense. That's one thing you notice of his last 2 fights. Pieced up by both of those guys, Sean and Kyle Dawkins. And Kyle Dawkins is not known as a striker. Kyle Dawkins, most of his wins are by submission. He does pressure forward well, but that's it. He doesn't have any side-to-side in-and-out movement. No head movement on this guy. Literally, basically none. Which means he's very susceptible to being jabbed apart. And Dawkins, he wasn't able to land any takedowns against Dawkins. But he did do a good job reversing position, getting mount, getting top control. When Dawkins had him down, great jiu-jitsu on him. Best part of his game for sure. Submissions are elite. The reversals are elite. Transitions elite, Heavy top pressure and powerful elbows. You go watch that Dawkins fight. Dawkins' face was battered by those elbows. Brutal elbows from top position. Always threatening submissions. A lot of his wins are by rear naked choke, though, which means he's going to have to get on top of his opponent or reverse position, one of the two. And not really known as a wrestler. Not really the best takedown defense or the takedown accuracy on him. Takedown defense isn't really that great either, 50%. He's going up against Karl Roberson, who, he is a jiu-jitsu guy himself with 4 submissions. Struggles defensively against the submissions. All 3 of his losses by submission, and he has a kickboxing background. He has really good, in my opinion, pretty good striking. He's going to have a big striking advantage in this fight. And decent offensive grappling, submission skills, like we said. Super fast jabs. Jab reminds me of Trevin Giles. Great one, too. Pretty heavy power. Uses low kicks well, like he did against Roman Kopylov. Uses low kicks so many times, man. But it was southpaw versus southpaw. This is going to be southpaw versus orthodox. So I don't know if that leg kick's going to be available to him as it was in that fight. Like I said, Roberson will have a pretty big advantage on the feet, and I think Allen will have a pretty big advantage on the ground. So it really just depends where you think this fight's going to go. And the reason why I think that it's going to stay on the feet is because Allen doesn't really have the best takedowns. Roberson has pretty good takedown defense. Not pretty good. It's okay. It's average. But you look at the guy who's been taken down by, it's, Glover Teixeira, Wellington Turman, Marvin Vettori. Like, you can't really be mad at that. Those guys have better wrestling than Brendan Allen, in my opinion. So I think we're going to see Roberson just use that jab. Just keep sticking that out and probably win a decision here. First underdog on the card that I'm taking is Karl Roberson. He's only plus 110, plus 105 on some sites. So I don't know if that's really worth a stab because it is such a close fight. It's pretty much 50-50 almost, in my opinion. Maybe you like Brendan Allen. I don't know. But I'm going to go Karl Roberson by decision. I wouldn't be surprised either way this one goes. Like I said, it's grappler versus striker here. And Brendan Allen's style is forcing Roberson to be a striker, basically. Next fight, Dwight Grant versus Stefan Struvelich. This is a pretty cool fight. I was pretty surprised when the odds came out because I do my breakdowns before I look at the odds, and Dwight Grant's a pretty big favorite here. So he's 10-3, 7 TKOs, huge power in this guy's hands. Coming off a KO loss to Daniel Rodriguez, which happens. Daniel Rodriguez is one of the elites. He's maybe not one of the elites, but he's right outside that top 15. And I don't really think there's a lot of shame in losing there. Dwight did drop Daniel in that fight, outstruck him by 2 times, even at the end of the fight, outstruck him still. Depending on who the ref was, that could have been called for Dwight. He could have got a TKO win over Daniel Rodriguez. Pretty low output. That's the thing about him. 39 total strikes and 33 total strikes against Alan Jouban and Zach Otto. And those fights went to the decision. These are total strikes across 15 minutes. So the guy's not throwing a lot of output out there. We've never really seen him engage in the grappling. He only has 1 takedown across 4 fights. Jouban did take him down, which I think more than anything, that was just Dwight being surprised that Jouban was taking him down, but Dwight got up quick and got out of there. So we really don't know a whole lot about his takedown defense. Hasn't really faced too many grapplers. He was able to go in there and keep his hitting with Zach Otto, who's a grappler himself. So that's pretty good. Really good footwork, constantly moving, circling, making it difficult for his opponent, and he's a hard first-round fighter, has a tendency to fade as the fight goes on. Taking on Stefan Sekulic here, 12-3, 3 TKOs, 6 submissions. Stefan, he's a kind of a well-rounded fighter, but definitely a primary grappler, I think. It's always his game plan to go out there and shoot for the single or the double leg. That's what he does, and he works his way into the clinch, tries to find the body lock trip. His striking is really to soften up his opponents, using the leg kicks, occasionally throwing head kicks. Another one of these grapplers is not afraid to kick because he's so confident in his ground game. Not a lot of output. Punches usually come one at a time, which can be a good thing, I guess. Not too good striking defense. Doesn't move in and out too well. His movement's more side to side, which can work against certain fighters. But against a guy like Dwight Grant, who's going to be throwing hooks at you, I'm just not sure if that's what you're going to need. 4 of his 6 submissions by guillotine, so he's good from the bottom position. Low output as well. 22 strikes against Ramazan Ameev. That's his first UFC fight, first UFC loss. Not a bad loss to have. We all know what Ramazan Ameev's doing nowadays. So, but 22 strikes, that's not what you like to see, really. Dwight will have the advantage in power, strength, technical striking, maybe even the output advantage. Stefan will have the grappling advantages. I do believe he will have a cardio advantage, even if it's just by a little bit. But we have seen Stefan TKO'd before by David Zawada very early on in his career, but it did happen. So I just feel like the most likely outcome in this fight is for Dwight Grant to go out there and get the early TKO. I'm going to predict that. Dwight Grant, TKO round 1. Little high of a line, like I said. I'm pretty surprised at this. I thought he'd be like a 175 maybe. I don't know. This is chalk. I believe he opened minus 280, so at least it's not that bad. Next fight on the card, Randy Brown taking on Alex Oliveira. Now this is a close fight. This is a very close fight. We got Randy Brown 12-4, 6 TKOs, 4 submissions, triangle choke win over Warley Alves. 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. This guy is huge. This guy is giant for the division. Coming off of that brutal KO loss to Vicente Luque. Also has a KO loss to Nico Price. We all remember that one. The hammer fist from the bottom. 2 very, very brutal losses. This guy's taken some damage in his career. And yeah, he's a pretty well-rounded fighter. I would say he's mainly a striker. Has pretty good jiu-jitsu. Okay takedowns. I'd say the wrestling department is not really where he's the best. He can get taken down, out-grappled like he did against Warley Alves before catching him in the triangle. He was getting out-grappled pretty hard. And yeah, I mean, Bilal Muhammad and Vicente laid out perfect blueprints for beating Randy and how you have to do it. You either have to wrestle him, or you have to take away his jab by going heavy on the leg kicks. That takes away his jab because you have to put heavy pressure on your front leg if you're going to jab, and the jab is his best part of his game. Yeah, he uses that range. Fast, has a lot of power behind his jab. Sometimes uses low kicks pretty well, front kicks up the middle well, which is obvious. He's a huge guy. You need to be using your front kick. So sometimes he drops his hands, leaves his chin wide open. Like he did against Vicente Luque. If you go back and watch that TKO, he pretty much was just like putting his hands on the ground to avoid the knee, which makes sense. But then he lifted his hands up and had no defense on his head, and then he just got kneed straight away. So I'm a little confused. Maybe the fight IQ's off. I'm not sure. Alex Oliveira, 22-9, 12 TKOs, 5 submissions. He's not really going to be at a huge reach disadvantage here, just an inch and a half. He'll be at a 4-inch height disadvantage. Oliveira's been in there with some straight killers. He does have 5 of his 9 losses by submission. But if you go look at who he's lost to by submission, Gilbert Burns, Donald Cerrone, Gunnar Nelson, and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Can't really be mad at either of those. He is not really the greatest defensively in general, though. Which is why I was confused in that Shavkat Rakhmonov fight. He showed a decent advantage on the feet. He's hitting Shavkat with his right hand. He's using his body kicks really well, like he did against Peter Sabata. And then he shot for a takedown. I was so confused to see that because he did not need to. He's going to win that round if he kept on the feet. Then just got caught right in the guillotine. So maybe another fight IQ thing here. Best weapon is body kicks. His Muay Thai is off the charts. Moves in and out, side to side, better than most fighters. He's just constantly moving. And his cardio is pretty good, too. His output is pretty low. Not like super low, but it's not high. Accurate striking, consistent striking, giving his opponents a lot of unexpected things flying at him. Takedown accuracy is only 37%. I don't really think he's going to be taking down Randy. He will have advantages over Randy in the clinch and cardio. I feel like the striking is so close on these guys to give one a clear edge over the other. I just can't really do it. But Randy will have the reach. He will have the output advantage. I'm going to give him an ever so slight edge in the grappling. I feel like if Alex Oliveira doesn't go out there and immediately start attacking that front leg, it's going to be a long night for him. But I feel like if he does do that and he does that well, which he definitely can, I feel like he can maybe put Randy away late or just take this to a decision. But I'm going to go with Randy Brown here by decision. I think his longer fighting style is going to be the key to victory here. And if Alex Oliveira goes for one of those takedowns like he has been recently, wouldn't be surprised if we see Randy put him in like a guillotine or a triangle or something like that. So I'm going to take Randy Brown by decision, though. Minus 175. Yeah, I can see it. I can see that being a little bit lower, though. I think this fight's pretty close. Moving on up, we got Anthony Smith taking on Jimmy Crute. This fight seems so fun to me, man. You got the new guy coming up. I mean, Anthony Smith's not old. I believe he's only like 32, but Jimmy Crute's 25. And Anthony Smith, he deserves his respect. He's been in there with everyone. John Jones, Glover Teixeira, 34-16, 18 TKOs, 13 submissions. Been TKO'd 9 times in his career, taking a ton of damage. Coming off that first round triangle choke over Devin Clark in this fight, really didn't learn a whole lot from it other than that his BJJ is pretty top level. I mean, I think we all knew that before. You just have to go back and watch any of his fights. There was really no striking in this fight. Devin Clark pretty much immediately shot for the takedown. A couple minutes in, how long was it? 2 minutes, 34 seconds. Anthony, after doing some exchanges on the ground, just caught him in that triangle. So he's crafty on the ground. Nowadays, though, he is definitely a main striker. He's been striking mostly boxing. Not really great wrestling. 28% takedown accuracy, 51 takedown defense is okay considering the guys who he's fought. Pretty good cardio, gone 5 rounds multiple times. Struggles against opponents with heavy top pressure. Glover and Rakic both just kind of dominated him on the ground once they were able to get the fight there. Or big power in his hands. He can get his lights put out. We've seen that. He uses his jiu-jitsu to bail him out. He uses that well when he gets taken down. Good submissions from bottom position. And good at reversing position in the Gustafsson fight. I don't know why Gustafsson took him down. That was one of the more strange things I've ever seen. And then Anthony just reversed position, put him in a rear naked choke. So pretty impressive jiu-jitsu. And yeah, veteran with a lot of experience for sure. Taking on Jimmy Crute. 12-1, 5 TKOs, 4 submissions. And his one loss is a submission to Misha Serkinov. It's going to happen. He kind of slipped up in that fight. I would like to see that one ran back later just to see what different outcome could happen. 4-1 in the UFC. 2 TKOs, 2 submissions. In his 2 most recent fights against Modestas Bukauskas and Mikhail Olejniczuk, he shot for a takedown almost immediately, and he landed it. He has great wrestling. He is very well-rounded, except he likes to fight on the ground a lot more than on the feet. Great submissions from top position, Kimuras, things like that, and arm triangles. And he has some heavy hands. We saw that in the Bukauskas fight. One of the more brutal knockouts you'll see. Pretty much knocked him out twice in midair, and has a submission win over Paul Craig. That's the only submission win on Paul Craig's record. If you submit Paul Craig, you're kind of like the submission god, kind of, right? Because Paul Craig is known as a submission guy. Jimmy Crute going out there submitting him. He has great boxing, heavy hands, like I said. Good speed, good low kick. Uses feints while moving forward. A lot of guys you'll see they just pressure forward while walking forward. Then they just eat jabs. So that's not him. He's feinting a lot while moving, so that way he can keep his opponent guessing, keeping his opponent from putting out output. Yeah, I feel like Anthony Smith is going to try to keep this one on the feet, uses forward pressure to keep Crute on the outside, on his back foot. Crute's super dangerous when you let him move forward. We've seen this in so many of his fights. He has the potential to end this one in both ways, TKO or submission. I feel like he will be able to take Anthony Smith down. I think he has the wrestling level to do that. And we've seen Smith struggle defensively. I feel like really what's going to happen in this fight is Crute's going to get on top of him and control him for 2.5 rounds and then get a late TKO. Wouldn't really be surprised if Smith threw up one of those submissions from the bottom or was able to keep this one standing. But I just feel like, what we care about here is the most likely outcome. And that's my pick. And I feel like that's going to be Crute by late TKO. 3rd round TKO is what I'm going to go with. Ground and pound. Somewhat of a close fight. Like 225, that's nuts, I feel like, for this fight. Anthony Smith deserves a bit more respect than that. I kind of agree with maybe like a 170, but yeah, I think Jimmy Crute should get this one done. Moving on up, we got Chris Weidman taking on Uriah Hall. Classic grappler versus striker. Except, Chris Weidman, I believe he has some underrated striking, to be honest. We're going to talk about Uriah here first. Has a record of 16-9, 12 TKOs, been TKO'd 4 times. A lot of people see his record and they're like, oh, it must be trash. But it's like, you look at the guys he's been up against. He has losses to Whitaker, Mousasi, Brunson, Costa. These are like very high level. All of these guys have been number 1 at one point. So, yes, that's pretty impressive. Both these guys are 36 years old, so somewhat of an old guy fight here. Uriah's going to have a 79.5 inch reach, which is nuts. Kickboxing style, excellent jab. It worked very well against Costa, and it worked very well against Anderson Silva. He does tend to get overwhelmed by swarms of strikes, susceptible to body shots, body kicks. He kind of keeps his hands really high, which can be good, but the elbows aren't really protecting his body as much. He's just a really huge guy. Feints well, sometimes too well, to the point where he's like tentative, like he was against Anderson. He lost round 1 against Anderson. I believe he lost round 3 against Anderson, if I'm remembering correctly. And that's a 45-year-old Anderson, so that's something to take note of for sure. 69% takedown defense, but he hasn't really faced a whole lot of grapplers. Brunson knocked him out in, how many seconds was this? 1 minute, 41 seconds. So we didn't really see Brunson, how he handled the takedowns of Brunson, but he took, Carlos Jr. took him down 3 times, and Carlos Jr., good grappler, but I was surprised to see that. But Uriah Hall did win this in the striking. He got a split decision win there. But yeah, we'll see how he goes up against a wrestler and Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman record of 15-5 coming off the UD win over Omari Akhmedov. And that's a pretty good win to have, especially at this point in his career. Omari's a good fighter, man. And Chris had how many minutes here? 8 minutes of control time in that fight. Previously fought at light heavyweight, made the right move back down to middleweight. Wrestled boxer. He's got some decent hands actually. Not really a kick heavy game. Just gonna be throwing hands, trying to get inside, trying to get the takedown. That's his style. All 5 losses by TKO. Been a long career for him, man. A lot of damage. Yeah, body lock takedowns, double legs, submissions from top position, Kimuras, things like that. Arm triangles against Kelvin Gastelum. Like, he's an elite fighter. And I feel like he's not as bad as people think he is now that he's just 36. Hall will give Weidman trouble in the feed. He's going to have a huge reach advantage. Obviously, he needs to keep his one standing, obviously. Use his jab, low kicks to try to immobilize Chris, stop the takedown that way. But Weidman's going to have to work his way into the inside, maybe into the clinch. I feel like he's going to get double legs over and over, to be honest. I feel like we haven't seen Uriah against really an elite level wrestler like Chris, like I mentioned before. He has good takedown defense, but he hasn't really faced anyone with the wrestling of Chris Weidman. I wouldn't really be surprised if Uriah Hall knocked him out early, but I'm gonna pick Chris Weidman by decision here, using the wrestling, using the top control, and yeah, let's check these odds here. But right now it's even. It was minus 130 for Uriah, so money's coming in on Chris Weidman here. Next fight, first belt fight of the night. Valentina Shevchenko taking on Jessica Andrade. For these belt fights, a lot of them I didn't analyze a whole lot because I feel like there's just no real need to. I know some of them aren't so black and white as people say, but they kind of are a bit. Valentina, we know Valentina is one of the most dominant female fighters of all time. Her 2 career losses are to Nunez and the 1 early career loss to Liz Carmouche, which she avenged later on. So you really can't take anything away from her there. She's a complete martial artist. Takedowns in almost every single one of her fights. Great striking. We see that head kick knockout over Jessica Eye. She can do it all. Literally everything. No issues with Maya's attempts. She was controlled in the clinch by Jennifer Maia in that second round, and she did lose that round, which I'm sure shocked everyone. Her left hand on the feet's really good. Takedowns, usually in the form of body locks or headlock to trips, which that's pretty typical of what we see of a lot of women fighters. It's just available to them. They can get inside faster, a little bit slower, so they can just get inside. Yeah, there's no real need to overanalyze Valentina. We know what she's gonna do. She can do everything, literally. Andrade 21-8, 15 finishes, which is awesome. You don't really see that about a lot of these fighters. 15 of her 21 wins are coming by finish. It's awesome. Very similar to Valentina, she can do everything. She lands a lot of takedowns. I believe in one of her fights, I believe it was Tisha Torres, she had 10 takedowns. I could be wrong there, but I believe I remember seeing that statistic somewhere. Yeah, a lot of power in her hands, pretty wild striking style, looping punches, dips her head and throws uppercuts from there. Rose hit her with a couple knees because of this. Her corner read that and, read it like a Harry Potter book and just told her to keep throwing the knees, and that's what happened. But, she doesn't have a choice. She's very short, 5'1", 62-inch reach. She's going to have to find a way to get inside of all these fighters' range. So, don't really blame her for using that style. Body head combos, good digs to the body like we saw against Qileng Aori. Constant head movement. It's kind of annoying to watch, but it probably does more good than bad for her. And yeah, she has a lot of success when she can bait her opponents in kind of to a brawl. More so than kind of a technical, rangy distance fight. Like, the third round of the Rose fight was more of a brawl. They were kind of just throwing in the pocket at each other. Huge hooks, like I said, uppercuts. And against Valentina, I think is to get her left hook going early. Get that left hook landing because that's her most rangy strike. She can just loop it out there and go right over the right hand of Valentina, try to land it. And then try to make it a brawl as the fight goes on. I don't know if Valentina can get can get sucked into a brawl. I don't think she's that level. I think she's very composed, but I feel like that's Andrade's path to victory. I don't really see her winning this fight. Valentina's probably just going to take her down a lot. Clinch game will be super strong for Valentina, and the range is going to be in favor of Valentina. I think she just has more upside here. But we might see a fluky TKO for Andrade. We might see Andrade get a decision. I'm going to pick Valentina by decision. She couldn't finish Maya. I feel like Andrade is super tough. I don't think it's going to be finished, in the 5 rounds, but it could be. I'm not sure. Yeah, she's sitting at like a minus 400 on average now, minus 525. Wow. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you like her as a parlay piece. I guess you can get value in a parlay out of like 380, 400, but not really. Like, those are some pretty high odds, but I think she's deserving of that line here. Next fight, I'm looking forward to this one. We got Weili Zhang taking on Rose Namajunas. So, I don't think we need to overanalyze this one either. You know, Rose has 5 submissions on her record, but she's been using her boxing. Her boxing is so crisp, very good. Great movement on the feet, crisp jab and 1-2. Keeps it simple. Doesn't really do too many crazy things. Threw some flying knees against Andrade, which I guess can be dangerous against like a grappler. Throw some head kicks once in a while, but mainly, dude, the impressive part is her boxing. 1.91 takedowns landed per 15 minutes for Rose. Most of these earlier on in her career. She's been striking recently, like I said. Pretty decent cardio, slowed down against Andrade heavily in the third. Um, Durable and tough, though, for sure. She did take a lot of damage in that round. And Whaley is 20-1, 10 TKOs, 7 submissions. Coming off of that win over Joanna. Close fight, brawl. Yeah, before that she had the TKO win over Jessica Andrade, which is very impressive. You're getting her out of there in 41 seconds in the very first round. Like, that's impressive to me. Heavy hands, heavy leg kicks. I starred this because I think this is going to be um, you know, the path to victory for her. This is going to be the feature that we see in this fight is the leg kicks from Whaley on Rose. Rose is very susceptible to getting leg kicked. She's a little bit taller, a little bit skinnier of legs than Zhang. I think Whaley's going to go out there with a leg kick heavy game, and she's not scared to make it a brawl either. To get inside and trade, great toughness, durability, chin, cardio, amazing cardio. 100% takedown defense, only 23% takedown accuracy. I didn't really ever find out which fight that was in that happened because that's not really a long-term statistic. That's more of like, oh, she shot for like 7 takedowns, missed them all, something like that. Huge strikes, dude. 6.38 per minute. That's nuts. I don't even understand how someone can do that. If Rose wants to win, she's going to need to stay on the outside of range. I think she'll be able to do it. I think she can. I think she can employ her jab. Be ready to check leg kicks, though. If this was a 3-round fight, I'll tell you this much. I would be picking Rose. I really think I would. 3-rounder. We saw Whaley very close first 2 rounds against Joanna. And Rose looked so good in those first 2 rounds against Jessica. I think I'd pick Rose in a 3-rounder, but it's a 5-round fight. She's going to slow down. Whaley's going to be wanting to close the distance, work the body, throw the leg kicks, especially as the fight goes on. And yeah, she'll be picking up her output while Rose slows her. So I feel like this is just a recipe for a 5th-round TKO for Weili. That's my pick. Weili Zhang by late 5th-round TKO. Somewhat of a confident pick. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Rose goes out there, wins the first 2 rounds, has Weili bettors kind of sweating because she is good from distance. Final fight on the card. Kamaru Usman taking on George Masvidal. Who wanted this? I don't know. Thought we all said we wanted the Colby fight, but it's all right. We're getting three belt fights, 3 title fights in one card, so it's pretty good. First fight, what did we see? Well, we just saw, George had some pretty good success in the first round with the striking, with the leg kicks early on. But I see a lot of the judge gave that 50-40, 50-45 for Usman. I did think I edged George in the first round, and then every other round was just Usman domination, basically. And yeah, Masvidal's coming into this fight with a full camp this time, not 6 days notice where he had to cut 20 pounds in 6 days, which definitely affected him in the cage, man. Um, George does have great takedown defense, 77%, but I don't think anyone's takedown defense matters against grapplers like Usman and Maia. George got taken down many times by Maia, so I don't really think he's going to be able to avoid the takedowns of Usman. Yeah, like I said, the leg kicks. Once Usman found his groove in the takedowns and the clinch, it was just rinse and repeat constantly for the remaining 4 rounds. I think we all remember that fight as being one of the most boring title fights. Usman showed us a style in his last fight that was not like this. He showed us a style that is a lot more entertaining when he TKO'd Gilbert Burns. One thing that is quite interesting is Gilbert Burns wobbled him in that fight, in that first round. If Masvidal comes out hot, and you told me Masvidal got a TKO in the first round, I wouldn't be like shocked. Um, but ultimately, it's low percentage. It is. What we're gonna see here is basically Usman just grappled George. If Usman goes out there and is super confident in his striking now that he stands with George, we'll see a pretty close fight. Um, but I don't think he's gonna do that. I think him and his team are smart. They're gonna grapple George. It's gonna be a first fight. It might be a bit more competitive, but I do think that's what we're gonna see. So anyway, yeah, we'll just run quick through this card again. I'm taking Ariana Carnelossi by decision, Qileng Aori by decision, Zhu Rong by decision, Danaa Batgerel by decision, Patsabatini by decision. A lot of decisions on here. Karl Roberson by decision, Dwight Grant by decision, Dwight Grant by TKO round 1. Randy Brown probably by decision, maybe a submission. Jimmy Crute TKO round 3, Chris Weidman decision, Valentina Shevchenko decision, Weili Zhang TKO 5th round, and then Kamaru Usman by decision. Um, like I said, I was going to put the Johnny Munoz fight in a parlay, but I'm not anymore. So probably like Pat Sabatini and Zhu Rong or something like that for my 2-man, and then maybe a play on Chris Weidman, and maybe throw Kamaru Usman in a parlay because he's basically the lock of the night for me. Yeah, thank you guys for watching.